In reading 2.2, we take a comparative look at the work of civil courts by looking at the work of courts in China and how often international corporations use courts within China. Um, Dr. Gibbons addresses this idea of a concept known as legal convergence. Legal convergence is the idea that as corporations become much more likely to operate in other countries, that they will cause the legal systems in those countries to converge upon international norms. Um, and the article that we examined this week in Reading 2.2 demonstrates that at least within China, that legal convergence has not taken place. Um, there are some reasons why legal convergence may not have taken place in China. Um, First, China is a strong state. That it is a state that has a significant amount of economic independence comparatively to other countries. It is a country that is strongly authoritarian, at least within terms of its legal regime. And because of these two factors sort of interacted, it's not all that shocking to see that legal convergence within China has not taken place. But that doesn't mean the companies that are operating in China, and there are many companies, international companies that do operate within China, do not have a means by which to affect change towards the ends that they want. And the article does a fair job at demonstrating that instead of pursuing judicial remedies for civil claims, that they go around and they interact with political officials within the regime to get the change that they're looking for, just not using the courts as the vehicle to attempt to get that change. So China simply may not be a good case to look at the concept of legal convergence. But I want to wade into the concept of legal convergence to begin with and discuss at least partially why legal convergence may not be a good thing in as much of the context as the article portrays it to be. Companies are absolutely engaging in business on a much more international and global scale than they have before. And because of that, they want to have court systems that work in congruence with international norms, because that makes it easier for them. What this means is that unique, interesting, important, culturally defined variations that may exist within countries' legal cultures can get eroded away based upon those countries' dependency on international trade and commerce. That might be a good thing for corporations wishing to do business within those countries. But it isn't necessarily a positive for the country's identity and uniqueness itself. And it may serve to some end to erode that country's own legal traditions. There may be a cost in terms of identity, in terms of what it means to be that country if those legal traditions are eroded. And so what we may be watching, and while many international corporations will tell you that legal convergence is a good thing, what we might be watching is a deletion of evolution in terms of the law. Because what we think about in the States, and I'm going to use the United States as an example, what we think about in the States is that each state can engage in the rule of law in some significant different ways depending upon what state it is. And the states will try out new things and see if it works. And if that new thing does work, then it will be transferred to other states. Other states will adopt that practice. But we basically have a marketplace of democracy where the where the way that works best, may transfer up and may become the general norm. But on an international stage, especially in the civil law realm, where multinational corporations are driving this legal convergence, and this legal convergence is 100% a Western convergence. It's not a convergence to another legal tradition. It's a convergence to a Western legal tradition. It may ultimately serve to erode any sort of innovation or any sort of cultural development that makes these states unique. And while it may be good for the economies of those countries, it may have deleterious effects on their legal traditions and their own trajectory in terms of legal evolution.